life is full of ups and downs. Make sure you have more ups than downs, because we're all going to have ups and downs. Just
it's
make
the
sure
80-20 rule, isn't it? The 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like to creep that up over the 90-10
Yeah.
in my life. But really, you know, if it's 80-20, we're doing well. If
Yeah.
we're mostly happy in a state of peace and calm and going about our day. And of course, there's going to be things that throw us, and it's how we deal with them as well. At that 20%.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Apple Pie Club. We're here to take on a thrilling journey through the realms of practical philosophy and spirituality. I'm Tanya, your practical philosopher, and I'm joined by Skye, your spiritual guide. And our aim is to offer you a holistic perspective on life, blending insights from diverse philosophies and spiritual practices. From personal growth to timeless wisdom, we will cover it all. So whether you're a seasoned seeker or just starting your journey, join us on this adventure. So grab a slice of apple pie, the recipes are in the notes, and let's dive in to the world of ideas together. And today's episode, which is episode 5, we are going to be looking deeper into the wisdom of Aristotle, who said, happiness is the meaning of the purpose in life, the whole aim and end of human existence. So Skye, I'm going to hand to you first. What do you think about this quote?
I was really excited that we're going to discuss this idea of happiness today, because firstly, I think we need to redefine this word happiness. And I think that's where all of our problems come from, is because we have the wrong or a misunderstanding of what happiness is. So I first went to the dictionary, and the dictionary definition of happiness says having a sense of trust and confidence in a person or situation, or feeling pleasure or contentment. And I think that's where we've misunderstood this whole philosophy of life. And Aristotle's quote, where he says, happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life. It's the whole aim and the end of our human existence, because trust and confidence in the people we are spending our life with and in situations, and this deep feeling of pleasure and contentment is such a different perception to what everyone out there thinks happiness is, and I did for years. It doesn't mean that nothing's going to go wrong. It doesn't mean we're not going to have any challenges. In fact, in one of our podcasts recently, we spoke about the obstacles in the river, the obstacles in the way. So it doesn't mean we're not going to have any obstacles, and it doesn't mean we're going to laugh all day and feel up there all day. You know, what it means is that we will have this inner peace and contentment, no matter what is going on in our situation. The Course in Miracles always says, will you choose a grievance or will you choose a miracle? So happiness is this art of choosing the miracle instead of choosing the grievance. And Marcy Shimoff, in her book, Happy for No Reason, tells us that happiness is this deep inner peace in life, no matter what our circumstances. And we can say, well, how can we have this deep inner peace when something's going really wrong? And, I am testament to that, where I lived for many, many years based on my circumstances. If my circumstances were down, I was down. If my circumstances were happy and pleasant, I was up. And that would have been called happiness to me. But I'm absolutely living proof of someone who can get to the place where I can feel at peace and content about life, even when there's a lot of things that are not going right around me. So I love this quote, and I think let's start from that premise, Tanya, in this session today, changing our whole concept on this idea and these thoughts about happiness.
That's fascinating, because you said happiness is trust. I've just made a note of it. Trust and confidence in people or situations around you. So, quick question. When you didn't find your pleasure in your contentment because I guess you didn't feel trust and confidence in certain people or situations around you. How did it change? Because we still are always going to get people or situations that we don't trust or that we're not happy with. How did you manage to change it so you weren't affected by those external circumstances and you got pleasure and contentment anyway?
So, yeah, good question. Thanks for that question. So, first of all, I completely based my happiness on external circumstances. I allowed other people and other situations to completely dictate how I was feeling. I gave them so much power in my life. Those circumstances, those people, those situations, I honestly, my sense of self-worth was even based on whether somebody acknowledged me that day or not, and so I realized it was a long journey for me. I talk about this in Spiritual Traveler, actually, my podcast. My first episode is that I actually said yes to a journey when I didn't know what I was saying yes to at the time, but it was a journey to go traveling around the world to rewire my neuropathways, because my neuropathways were fixed and they were ingrained in this understanding or this belief system, this core belief system, that I reacted to whatever everybody did to me instead of responded. And so, yeah, it was a journey of changing my neuropathways, of really coming to the understanding and the realization that many people are projecting their own hurt out into the world? Are they projecting their own negative emotions out into the world? And they're dealing with their own shit. Sorry, they're dealing with their own stuff. And so for me to get involved in all of that, in fact, Neil Donald Walsh, I heard him once say, we can often just be collateral damage in someone else's day, someone else's experience. And that, the fact that it used to determine how I was feeling, and therefore determined how I was behaving based on my external circumstances. So it was a huge mindset shift to realize that other people don't have that much control over me. They don't have that much power. And I needed to move myself up. We looked at the map of human consciousness in our first or second episode. The map of human consciousness shows very clearly that when we're living in shame and guilt and fear and anxiety, that we're living in these low energy frequencies. And so I needed to choose willingness to move up out of that and choose to stay in those higher vibrational frequencies of love and peace and joy instead of what we will call happiness. It's actually a state of joy. It doesn't matter what's going on around me.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So it was, and I guess that's what our podcast is about, really, isn't it? Spirituality and philosophy, which is what the journey you went through. And I've done a similar journey, and a lot of our listeners have done a similar journey, or they're on the beginning of that journey where you kind of say, I'm not putting up with this anymore. There's something wrong. I don't want to be controlled by external events or people or whatever. And then through spirituality and philosophy, you learn skills,
That's
and
exactly
techniques.
Right. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
and
exactly
one of them we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we're learning skills and techniques to master.
So let me look at happiness from a philosophical perspective, and it very much can encompass different interpretations and beliefs, all of which are right. Happiness, because happiness is such a global term, I guess, it's sometimes hard to grasp and get hold of. So I'm going to just run through a few different perspectives on what happiness is from a philosophical perspective, and then I'll just briefly touch on, well, what works for me, right? Because it might work for somebody else, but each to their own, right? So number one, happiness is a state of well-being or flourishing. So, and that is considering your physical, emotional, and psychological aspects of your life and your being. So when we look at happiness as a state of well-being and flourishing, it means that we have to get control over our physical, emotional, and psychological aspects through personal growth and self-actualization. So that's about self-development, right?
Yes.
So some philosophers believe that self-development, happiness is through self-development and self-growth.
Yeah. And some things need others to help us identify that. It isn't just read a self-help book, So for example, our emotions, our thoughts create feelings, and these feelings create a chemical that gets released in our body. So if we've grown up, as I had, with this state of sadness rather than happiness, my body was actually addicted to that chemical that produced sadness. And so I had to continue creating these activities, events in my life, actually, that induced that chemical so that I could feel that feeling of sadness. And I call it, that was my situation normal. My body felt safe again, happy again in sadness. And so it really is a matter of even identifying what the feelings are, what the emotions are, so that actually you can change that, and you have to train your body to be addicted to a different feeling, a different state, a state of peace and calm.
Interesting that that you went through the journey of identifying what emotion or what feeling that you were attached to, and the fact it was negative, right? You thought, oh my God, driving my own destiny here.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it took me a long time, and we spoke in a previous podcast as well about unlayering the onion. So it was a lot of layers of the onion, but that's what I finally realized is I saw it in my childhood. I lived, in my childhood in a complete state of sadness. And so it became so much my situation normal that you actually don't even know that it's not supposed to be like that until you start getting glimpses of a different way of being, and you start getting this self-growth. And then you have to actively make those changes.
Yeah. Exercise your free willing choice and how you're going to behave from this moment on, right?
Yes. Yes.
Some philosophers believe it's you achieve happiness through self-growth. Some philosophers look at hedonistic pleasures of a higher good. And this is very much quite well documented in Greek philosophers such as Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, where they centered their belief of happiness around pleasure. So seeking pleasure and minimizing pain, whatever pleasure being, pleasure not being what we all may deem pleasure to be different things. But ultimately, you focus on getting more pleasure than more pain, and therefore you're going to be happier. And I do like to think that life is full of ups and downs. Make sure you have more ups than downs, because we're all going to have ups and downs. Just
it's
make
the
sure
80-20 rule, isn't it? The 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like to creep that up over the 90-10 in my life. But really, if it's 80-20, we're doing well. If we're mostly happy in a state of peace and calm and going about our day. And of course, there's going to be things that throw us, and it's how we deal with them as well. At that 20%.
Yeah. So listeners, make sure that you're balancing towards the positive and the pleasure perspective.
Yeah.
Now, a third way that philosophers like Aristotle, he argued that happiness is not merely a fleeting emotion or an acquisition of personal possessions, but rather a real comprehensive way of being and living, and living in sync and unison with our virtues, and therefore engaging in activities that align with our values and our purpose. So happiness is achieved through living a life that is true to who we are. And again, that's going to be different for different people, right? Because different people hold different values.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could link it to the first one and second one. Some people link a strong value to self-growth, and some people link a strong value to pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Layer it up.
Yeah. No, it is. It's that aligning with your values, aligning with your purpose, and aligning with your higher self, your true self, actually. When you've got that congruency, you're much more likely to stay in peace and contentment throughout difficult circumstances.
Which brings me to the fourth area where a lot of philosophers look, which is more around the religious traditional attributes of happiness, which is connection to the higher power, or the divine connection to your spiritual growth. So that's, connecting with your higher self. So,
Yes.
so therefore, you've got self-growth, pleasure, values, and higher self as options of how philosophers believe you reach happiness. But today, I want to just introduce the concept of, to achieve happiness, understand the distinction that some things are in your control and some things are not in your control.
Yes.
What is in your control, which goes back to what you very first said at the beginning, what is in your control are your thoughts, your beliefs, and your actions.
Yeah.
That's where you get your internal pleasure and your contentment from.
Yeah.
What is not in your control is absolutely everything else, everything everybody else does, situations in the world. And that's why I was quite interested when you said to start with, before you went on your spiritual journey, your philosophical path, you were unhappy because you were focusing on things that you had no control over. And if we don't have any control over it, then there's not a lot we can do about it. So when we're looking about achieving happiness, is quickly distinguish between that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't control something, then really let it go. Yeah.
Mm. Well, actually, I just recently came across this amazing tool, which is funny. I've seen and heard of it before, but somehow when the time is right, it sticks with us. And so I think it's Byron Katie, and it's called The Works. And the idea is that you ask yourself the question. So as soon as a thought comes in about something that is happening in your life, as soon as a thought comes in, ask yourself, is that thought true? What have I thought about this situation, and is it true? And I catch myself doing this a lot now, and I think about something and then I think, hold on, do I absolutely know that thought is true? 9 times out of 10 I have to say no. So then if we don't absolutely know that thought is true, okay, let it go, because we don't really know. Okay. On the 1%, 10%, 10 out of 100 times that we might get the answer, yes, it's true, then we go to those next questions. It is really that idea of what is in our control. We think negatively about things, but if we just really stopped and asked that question, is what I'm thinking about this situation or about this person true? And the answer to that question is no. It immediately gives us the opportunity, as you've just said, to let it go, to choose another thought, and to move on.
Yeah, I've worked with quite a few people actually who mind read. Not mind read in terms of their like hypnotherapists.
Okay.
No. Mind read in terms of, oh, well, they're thinking that about me. I think, well, how do you know they're thinking that about you?
Yes,
they are. Exactly. Well, have you asked that?
Exactly right. How do we really know that they're thinking that about us? Do we really know? Yeah.
Not unless you ask and then clear it up.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. But I love what you've been talking about, in fact, the happiness psychology, because there's even a modern day happiness psychologist. There's many of them at the moment, but of course, we all know Martin Seligman, who was one of the first. And he talks about those 3 different lives, the pleasurable life, the good life, and the meaningful life. And the pleasure is where we do have our environment and our basic needs met, which is really important. But this interesting statistic is about that is there's a certain level that once a person gets to that level, it doesn't make any difference. More material possessions don't make any difference. They don't make you any happier. And then, of course, there's the good life, where it's virtues, as you were talking about, and discovering our value and self-esteem. And then there's the meaningful life, where it's that deeper sense of fulfillment, that spiritual connection that you were talking about. And one of the examples that I'll bring from way back when, one of the kings of Israel is Solomon, that we know so well to have been, he's kind of labeled as the wisest king that Israel Israel ever had, the wisest man on earth. And so we can learn a lot about his search for peace and happiness. He tried to find happiness in his material possessions. He was the wealthiest man. Even the Queen of Sheba came to visit him one day, and she was amazed he had surpassed her wealth. So then he realized that didn't make him happy. So he turned to acquiring knowledge. And he's extremely wise. There's a wonderful story. I'm not sure if we have time to tell it, but that really depicts his knowledge. And also, he then turned to wine and liquor. That didn't make him happy. So then he turned to woman. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines. I don't know how one man could cope with 700 wives and 300 concubines. And that just shows about his wealth too. How do you actually keep 700 wives and 300 concubines? So I'm not sure what he was looking for in each of them that would one day make him realize, oh, this one makes me happy. But anyway, we talk about the 4 L's, luxury, learning, liquor, and lust. Well, Solomon had them all. And he finally found happiness, as he said, in connecting with his source, finding that peace and contentment within, going with the flow of the river. And it really is what every human being craves, finding that sense and that contentment.
Yeah, 100%. I've just gone through a bit of a tragedy and suddenly lost someone, and been digging deeper into the whole concept of philosophy. And I kind of I started being really miserable, and I was just impacting everybody else around me. And what's wrong with you? What do you think's wrong with me? And I thought, you know what? I've got to make a decision here. Something bad external has happened. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. I can wake up in the morning and make the decision, do I want to be happy?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if I say, yes, I want to be happy, then if I want to be happy, it shouldn't be based on conditions of circumstances around me. It shouldn't be, well, yeah, but I'm only going to be happy if the sun's out and I can go for a stroll. And, and if nobody looks happy on social media than I do, right?
Yes.
Because if all that happens, then I'm going to be unhappy. But that's actually not making the decision to be happy. So, and I think that if we answer that question honestly and make a conviction to dedicate our thoughts and our feelings and our attitude and how we're going to approach each day to, yes, I'm going to be happy, we don't have to wallow in situations which, when we go down our slope, a 20% slope or a 10% slope that we're aiming towards, right? When we can still be happy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine because it's a decision we've made. And I found that really worked for me. It's by waking up each morning and checking in during the day. I am going to be happy.
Yeah.
What has happened to me is not going to stop.
Yeah.
Determined.
That's great, Tanya. And you were able to move through that because grief is on the map of human consciousness. It is one of the lower vibrational frequencies, but it has its place. We're human beings. We have a human body. So when we lose someone in this in human form, we are able to grieve. It's prolonged grief that is always the problem that keeps things down, keeps our vibrational frequency down. So I do love the idea that you were able to step up into that knowing very quickly, into willingness to decide to choose that this person would have wanted me to continue with my life. So I'm going to choose to actually check in and make sure I'm happy. I'm at peace and contentment, at contentment with my life.
And it still doesn't mean that you don't grieve.
Of course.
Yeah, there'd be pockets during the day. But you don't start impacting your energy and everything because, if you're not choosing happiness, you actually close your heart. Yeah. So if you think, for example, now we've both been with people in the past where we once loved and then we no longer love them anymore, right? Which most of our listeners have been there. If you think about, when you were in love with someone and they were interacting with you, your heart's open. And then they do something to annoy you. And if you can just recall that right now, they do something that annoy you and you look at them, your heart closes, kind of
Mm.
snaps closed. I
Yeah.
like that song Snap. It reminds me of the heart going whoop
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
closing again.
Yeah.
And I think that when we don't choose happiness,
Mm.
because it is in our control, we can
Yeah.
choose to be happy if we want to.
Yeah.
We close our heart
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
close our energy, and that
Yeah.
starts impacting lots of other people around us.
That's exactly right. It's actually a phenomenon that the vibrational frequency that we're in can impact others, and the vibrational frequency of others can impact us. I I would like to also add that if someone's in difficult circumstances, I think once again there's another question to ask: is this the 80-20 rule? Are you just going through a 20% time, 20% moment? Or are you living most of your life, this 80%, in this unhappy situation? And then maybe, there are some actions that one needs to take to remove themselves from that situation, to find happier circumstances, to find other circumstances where they can be happy. So I think it's a really important thing to say, that we're not just saying, choose to be happy. If, for example, if someone's in an abusive relationship, or we're not saying, okay, you can choose to be happy in that situation. There
And
are
stay
times
there.
that you need to move out.
Yeah,
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 exactly. There are
yeah.
times you need to move out of that situation, in order to, and only you know in your spirit, this is something I can fix, I can work with, I can deal with my own peace and contentment in this relationship, or in this situation, and maybe a job as well. Or is this something that you need to move out of? And I know in my travels around the world, there was sometimes some schools that I went to, or universities, actually, I taught at universities, and I had a 2-year contract, but I knew after 3 months that if I stayed, this would not be good for me. This was just not the right place for me. And so I left, that situation. So there's reason that must come into it as well, that we must really know and understand that this is a place where most of the time I can find happiness, I can find contentment and peace. But if it's the other way around, find some help to get somebody to actually help you move on and take the steps to move out of that situation.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't have the strength yourself, and you know that it's not 20%, it's more of your life, that
Yeah.
you're actually in a place where it's unhappy, because you become weaker and weaker, you get kind of worn down, don't you?
Yeah.
And
Well,
sometimes it's very
yes.
hard for us to make
Yeah.
a, we just can't even say, well, I'm going to choose to be happy,
Yeah.
because it's gone beyond that choice.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's interesting though about happiness, is that scientists have proved that there's a set point, a happiness set point. And we've all heard this idea that when people win the lottery, and I heard it about people lose their money within a year. They've lost it within a year, but it isn't that they've lost their money within a year. What's happened is they go back to the same happiness set point that they had before they won the money. So if they were miserable people and not happy with their life, it doesn't matter that they now have 5 million, 10 million, however many $1 million. They go back to being at that set point. And that's because our happiness set point is determined by a number of things. 50% is determined by our DNA. Now, that would have been a horrific statement up until about maybe 20 years ago, where we all believed that our DNA was fixed, that we couldn't change it. But scientists have now proved that we can change our DNA. Solfeggio frequency meditations change our DNA. So if you listen to certain frequencies of the solfeggio frequencies, it's been proven that it changes our DNA. And also a few other things about our core self-concepts. Okay. The other thing is 40% are our habits. So only 10% are our circumstances. 50% is our DNA. 40% are our habits. So what we have, those are completely in our control. So if we start start by listening to the solfeggio frequencies. Okay, they automatically change your DNA just by listening to them. It's an easy fix. I always say that's the easiest fix. Okay, but the other 40% are your habits. So habits such as we've been talking about, when you first get that thought about a situation, get into the habit of asking that question: is it true? Is this thought I've just had, is it true? If we can get into that habit and change that thinking, the other thing that we know increases endorphins is exercise and healthy eating and great relationships. So my tip for this session is, before I hand over to you to close, is I would say assess your relationships. That would be the biggest one for me, because I look back over my life in the past, the mistakes I've made where I've actually really gone down in terms of my happiness and my mental frame of mind has been because I've been living with the wrong person, the person that was not right for me. I was not able to be open. You spoke about, when we are expanded and we're open and we're living our potential, and we have someone who, I love this, you feel trusted and safe when someone's got your back. So when you're with someone and they've got your back and you feel open, that's when happiness comes in. Okay, you can feel peaceful and content. But when you're living in this environment where you shut down all the time and your opinion doesn't count, and whatever it is for you, if you're closed, you can't change your habits. You can't change that set point. So make sure you're in an environment where you're open. You can change your habits. You can go for a walk every day. You can choose to eat healthy food. If you're really desperately unhappy in your work, put the intention out there. It's amazing. Just actually saying these words with full intention. I would love to find another job. Please, universe, help me to find the job that's right for me. So whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's whatever circumstance it is that you need to change, put it out there and make some little action steps to create habits to change your happiness set point.
Oh, I love those tips. My tips are more for people who've got control, right? Not so much for people who are in a bad job or a bad relationship, because a lot of people aren't, and they're still miserable.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. My tips are for you guys. If you're one of those.
DNA, but probably they also have some bad habits, some habits that are bringing them to that place. So it's habits and DNA. Yeah.
And when we look at those statistics, that 50% of your DNA, and I know a couple of people who they have got a beautiful, beautiful life. They've got money, they've got a beautiful family, but they can do whatever they want, right? And they're miserable.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, well, send some frequency.
Yeah.
To them. But and I thought DNA, that's interesting, because I can see DNA in terms of their upbringing. One person I'm thinking in particular, their parents were quite miserable. I was blessed with very positive, an extremely positive, upbeat, adventurous mother.
Wow.
Kind of quite different
That's
for her
huge.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
she really drove me. So I didn't, but I'm looking at this person, I'm thinking about that their parents were so doomy and gloomy that you can see where that DNA has come from. And then through the lack of self-development and the lack of, not evolving as a being, their habits of mind aren't the best that they can be.
Yeah.
So if you're one of these people who feel that really, if you really look at your life, it's actually not that bad, there's other people way worse off than you, then this is my tip. Let go of negative thinkings and melodrama, right?
Yeah.
And transcend your idea of happiness.
Yeah.
by really understanding what is in your control and what is not in your control. And if it is in your control and you're still being unhappy, then do something about it, because it's your choice whether you decide to be happy or whether you decide to carry on living the life that you're living. And ultimately, one of, you could argue that the most important thing in life is to be happy, right? And happiness, like you said earlier, has got nothing to do with possessions. It's got nothing to do with externally what you have. The poorest of poorest people are happier than the most wealthy people. And I'm not saying wealthy people are unhappy and poor people are unhappy. I'm not saying that at all, but it doesn't have anything to do with your external conditions. It's all to do with what is deep within your mind, your beliefs, what you're saying to yourself, your inner dialogue. That's the whole, complete subject again that we'll touch on at some point. But wake up in the morning. If I asked you the question, do you want to be happy? And you said, well, yeah, of course I want to be happy. Why not? Then make that decision, because your life's not that bad. You've got nothing to worry about. Make that decision, change your thinking, change your habits, and just be happy. And convict yourself to that. So that's my tip for the others.
No, that's good. It's a great tip for all of us, actually, because we come back to what I said at the very beginning. When we change our thinking, we change the chemicals that we are producing in the body. So if we're always thinking negative thoughts, we're producing negative chemicals. So whether it's anxiety producing chemicals or whether it's depression, so basically whatever we've been thinking for so long, our body becomes addicted to that. And so we have to actually make those little changes. Recognition is the first step. I always say awareness is the first step. Awareness is the key. And then we start to say, okay, I'm not going to, in fact, when I first started out, I would speak these words. I would say, okay, I recognize that you're craving sadness. I say, but body, I'm not giving you that chemical anymore. I'm not going to let you be addicted to sadness anymore. We're going to move. We're going to become addicted. If anybody listening to me, they think I was nuts, okay, but I did it on my own. I said, we're not going to be addicted to sadness anymore. We're going to be addicted to peace and joy. So I would find that an experience that would give me a sense of peace, not go and look for that experience of sadness. And initially it all gets a little confused and it's all a little bit muddly, but then it starts to become, oh, I feel less and less sad, more and more peace and contentment. Then I don't have to talk to myself about it anymore. That habit is just forming and the body is craving the right hormone, the right chemical. So the different emotion shows up.
Because obviously that was quite ingrained in you, sadness. So you felt comfortable there. You thought, okay, if I'm sad, then I know that I'm right about who I am, because that's who I believe I am. Yeah. So to get over the sadness, what did you do for the 50% of your DNA?
Okay, so that's interesting. Now, as I mentioned, I'm now very aware of the solfeggio frequencies. Okay, and I do solfeggio frequency meditations on a regular basis. But also just changing your habits to create the new chemical. So this can go in a big discussion. And I'm not a scientist, but I do know this. I once said to my daughter, if our cells reproduce so quickly, then why do they reproduce? Why are we still sick? Thankfully, I've always had a very healthy body and still do. But so other people, I was talking about, so why do they still get sick? So if the liver cell, for example, is diseased, but it reproduces every 4 months or however many months, why is the liver still sick? Why do people still have these diseases? Well, I've been learning, okay, that actually once the DNA is changed, it reproduces the diseased cell. So it reproduces more and more and more of the diseased cell, gets more diseased, reproduces more and more and more of the diseased cell. So to change our DNA back to the way it was, as I say, there's meditations you can do. There's the solfeggio frequency and other meditations. There's stem cells, etc. You can use, but that's part of changing your habit. You don't give the body that chemical anymore, and it then starts changing your DNA. And just by thinking, there has been there's a wonderful experiment by, can I remember his name, Leonard Lebovici. And he divided the room of 100 people into groups of 4, and he gave them names of patients in a hospital who were suffering from sepsis. And he said to this one group, you do nothing with your names. He said to the other group, I want you to think about these people being healed. He said to the other group, I want you to feel these people may be healed. And he said to the 4th group, I want you to think and feel these people being healed. So the 4th group did that, and they found that the names of the people that they had on their paper, these people actually they healed quicker, they got out of hospital, had shorter stays in hospital, and just moved on with their lives quicker. Now, the freaky part about that is that actually happened 10 years before the people were in hospital, 10 years before the meditation experiment. But we're not going to go there. But the point is that you actually can, by thinking and feeling and visualizing your new life, your body actually grows into that new life and that new way of being. People have healed themselves because they shift their energy. Therefore, that's what energy healers are. We don't heal people as an energy heal. We help people shift their energy, and the body heals itself. So it's what opening up chakras does. All of that. It's actually, you can do chakra meditations, all of that. You're opening up the chakras, you're causing everything to align, and actually then the body heals itself. You can actually change your own DNA by creating new habits for yourself.
Love it. Thanks for explaining it like that. Listeners, there's lots for you to consider there. To change your 50% DNA, and then but just remember, only 10% is your circumstance.
Only 10%. Yes. Don't even, unless, as I've mentioned, it's a deal breaker for you. That who was it who said you can't change your thinking in the same environment that made you sick? Was it Einstein or somebody? So unless you're in an environment that's really making you sick, as in really struggling with your mental health, and that affects your body, focus on your 10% circumstances first to get out of that situation. Other than that, you need to focus on the DNA and your habits. Changing your habits, for one thing, will be huge. And then there are so many things. As you heal your cells, they reproduce healed cells. They reproduce a healed body. I'll tell you one last thing you can say, I guess, statement you can say, if you want to look up Emil Cole, he was a psychiatrist from years, or physician, one of the two, maybe both, from years and years ago. And he gave this treatment to his patients. Every second of every minute of every hour of every day, I'm getting better and better. And as they did their treatment with him, they would speak this: every second of every minute of every hour of every day, I'm getting better and better. And I changed that. I go swimming my laps, and I go, every second of every minute of every hour of every day, I'm getting healthier and healthier. Every second of every minute of every hour of every day, I'm getting wealthier and wealthier. Every second of every minute of every hour of every day, I'm looking younger and younger. I once went on a hike, and I said that over and over and over again. And people always say to me, when they see a picture of me of about 10 years ago, they say, oh my goodness, you look so much younger than you did when you were, for 10 years ago. So I still say it now. I'm going to have my neck lift one day. I am. That's just, that is guaranteed. But in terms of feeling healthier and healthier and looking healthier and healthier, I say it all the time. If I'm just going for a quick walk, I remember every second of every minute of every hour, every day, I'm looking younger and younger. I'm feeling younger and younger. My cells are, getting younger and younger. So that's just one that you can take as a habit that you can use.
It's true though, isn't it? I mean, I just feel young, and I've got one And she constantly goes on about how old she feels. And I think, you're only going to make yourself feel older. If what you are, what you end up thinking, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. You are,
Mm.
you are exactly what you end up thinking. Your outer circumstances are a direct result of your conscious mind, what you have been thinking about your life for the last so many years. So you want to make some changes in the future? Habit, change your thinking about your future. Add with that visualization and how you feel, and add with that solfeggio frequencies that change DNA. There's the 728, I think it is the magic, a miracle one that brings miracles into your life. So there are so many things you could do. Pick one or two that you can take from this and apply them to your life, because they say knowledge is power, but actually applied knowledge is power, not knowledge. And so decide, okay, from this, I'm
I
going to take
like that.
one or two. Yeah, that's it. It isn't
Very important, the word applied.
very important, the word applied. I remember thinking about that one day, thinking, knowledge isn't a power, it's applied knowledge. That's power. I think I heard somebody say it. As Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. Our wise man, nothing new under the sun. So applied knowledge is power. And take something that you can do over the next I think we mentioned once in a previous podcast about how long it takes to form a habit, and it can be anything. Any scientists scientifically proved it can be anything from 18 days to 245 days. And when they went back, because they all had the same experiment, when they went back, it was a 10-minute walk after dinner. They asked the people, why did it take this group so long? And what they determined was it was the desire that the person had to integrate that into their life. So those who took 18 days, it was, I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk after dinner. There's not even a fight in my mind about this. Dinner, let's go. After 18 days, it became a habit. Those who sat there say, I don't want to go for a walk after dinner. Oh, do I have to go for a walk after dinner? I don't want to do this. Okay, so took some of them 240 days for that. And the habit is, it's after dinner, let's get up and go for a walk without even thinking about it. It is now so ingrained. It's our neuro pathway. This is what we do. So it's the way it's how we view what we want to bring into our life. That new habit determines how quickly it will form in our lives.
Yeah. And what you're saying to yourself in the process, you're fighting it or you're flowing through it. All right. Wonderful conversation. There's some beautiful tips there. We do, as always, have links in the show notes for you to follow to help you improve your life. So there's going to be meditations there, etc. We also have training courses and we run them regularly. So if you're interested, again, they'll be put in the show notes and you can just click on through and then select something which is going to work for you. So I'm going to say bye and I'm going to hand over to Skye for the meditation. Thanks again, listeners. Bye for now.
Thanks, Tanya. Always a pleasure. So I'd like you to think about a time in your life when you really experienced joy. It might be a person, it might be a time you were with a pet, wandering down on the beach, perhaps with an animal. It might be the day you brought your new pet home. It might be the day you married the love of your life. Whatever it is, I'd like you to remember a time where you really felt great joy and great peace and contentment in your life. And I'd like to ask you to place your left hand on your heart. And we're going to breathe in and out through our heart. So, of course, we're breathing in our nose, but in our mind, as you breathe in, I want you to see the energy coming from around you into your heart. And as you breathe out, see and feel the energy from your heart moving out. And breathe in again. Breathe into your heart and breathe out from your heart. And when we do this, we open up our heart, as we spoke about in the podcast today. And it's in this environment of opening up our heart that we can experience more and more of life's joy and contentment. And with your heart open, I want you to think again of that moment in time in your past when you had that experience of joy or peace. And feel and see a golden light around your heart and around that experience. And just by spending the next 1 minute where your body is now feeling this feeling of joy and experiencing this experience again in this golden light, you're changing the cells in your body. Feel yourself smiling. Feel those feelings again. And you might want to end with these words every second of every minute of every hour of every day. I am feeling more and more peaceful. And you can gently place your hand down from your heart. Breathe again into your heart and out of your heart. I know that you are love. I know that you are light. I know that you are infinite. When you're ready, you can wiggle your toes and your fingers and come back into this space.